All right. Good evening again, everyone. Thank you to those of you who are joining us live this evening. We really appreciate you taking the time out of your busy schedules to come and learn a little bit more about course selection and a little bit more in general about Lineville Middle School. I'm John Ross. I'm the principal at LMS. I'm joined this evening by our two assistant principals, Janice Lear and Andy Kirby. You're going to hear from them in just a few moments. Just a quick reminder for maybe folks that joined late. You will have a chance to ask questions. If at some point we're covering something and you don't want to forget your question, you can always put it in the chat. There is a chat feature. If you look at the bottom of your screen, you should be able to find it. We may not answer it right away, but we're going to make sure we go through the chat and answer any questions. But I would encourage you to wait until you hear things, because there's a really good chance we're going to cover a lot of what you may be wondering about over the course of our presentation. We'll stay on here as long as we need to make sure everybody's questions get answered, so that everybody is making an informed decision when you're selecting courses for your child for next year. Okay, so we are recording, and I think we're going to get underway. It looks like we have everybody that's in the waiting room that's joined us. So as I said, I'm John Ross. I've been the principal at LMS since 2010. Seems like just yesterday I came to Lineville Middle School, but it has been quite some time now. Maybe those of you that this is your first time at LMS, you may not have met me before. Parents who have had kids go through middle school before, welcome back. We think you're going to know a lot about LMS, but there have been a number of things that have changed over the last couple of years. So we are certainly glad that you all took the time to come and join us tonight. The way we operate as an administrative team is at any time, if you need anything and you're not sure whom to call, you can always call any one of us or email or reach out to any one of us. But we do assign ourselves to specific teams in the school just to help with organization and with administration. So currently right now, I'm in charge of the D House, which is the 7D 1776ers team, the 8D American Eagles team. I work primarily with the students and the teachers on those two teams. Ms. Lear is working with currently this year the 7A, 7B, and 7C teams, and Mr. Kirby is working with the 8A, 8B, and 8C teams. More than likely for the incoming 7th graders, he's going to cycle down and pick up next year 7A, 7B, and 7C. Ms. Lear will move up with her crew up to 8th grade. But again, we'll hit you with that again at the start of the year. But if you're ever unsure of whom to call, you can always reach out to any one of us, email any one of us, and we'll be happy to help you out. But that's our team. We work pretty well together. Mr. Kirby just joined us a couple of days ago as assistant principal, but he was formerly our school psychologist and has been with us for a couple of years. So we're super excited to have him in this new role and excited to get somebody that is pretty familiar with LMS that's joined our team. We do have 3 school counselors, and they are also divided up according to teams. So Ms. Crane is with me with the 7D and 8D teams. She's the team leader of the counseling team. Ms. Rulo's currently with Mr. Kirby, working with the 8A, 8B, and 8C teams. And Mr. Wells is with Ms. Lear, working with 7A, 7B, and 7C. And again, they will rotate, they will move up with the students. The whole idea, I think you're going to hear a common thread here. The whole idea is to try to provide as minimal disruption for your child for their 2 years, because there's a quick turnaround. They spend 1 year at Marsh Creek, then 2 years with us, and then they go to high school. So those multiple transitions, we try to do a number of things to minimize those transitions and those disruptions. So having the same counselor for both years at LMS, having the same administrator for both years at LMS just really helps with managing and helps you to know, who you're working with. You get a familiar relationship with them. We have, in my opinion, the best school nurse in the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania, the best nurse. I'm in 30 years in education, and she's just the greatest school nurse I have ever worked with. Ms. Webb has been through a heck of a lot, as I'm sure you can imagine, in the last couple of years. She's just a fantastic lady, truly cares about your children, will bend over backward to do whatever she can to help and serve as a consult for you, whatever your situation may be. So she's just a phenomenal nurse, and we're very, very fortunate to have her and somebody that you'll probably get to know over the next couple of years if you haven't already. And then our prevention specialist, Ms. Walsabin, joined us earlier this year, new to our school, but again, has come in and just done a fantastic job since she's joined us. And she's part of that pupil services team. She deals with some of the more intensive cases that counselors might, push kids up to her. If there's a higher level of assistance needed, she's somebody that can be a connection for you to community resources if you're in need of some sort of services in the community. So she's a great support person, and she's available for all of our families as well. So that's our kind of admin team. Let me just talk briefly about middle school. And this is particularly for those of you that are coming up to 7th grade, especially if you're new to LMS. So you heard me mention teams a couple of times. We have 4 houses, okay? A house, B house, C house, and D house. And the idea is to make these smaller communities of learning. So if your child is put on a house, let's say they wind up on 7A next year, they'll be with the same group of kids, similar to how they operate now in 6th grade. They're with that same group of teachers, the same kids, rotate between those teachers for all their core subjects. However, when they go to 8th grade, they all go together from 7th grade to 8th grade, and it's in the same hallway and the same part of the building. We do that to try to minimize, again, the amount of traveling they have to do and learning places in the school. Plus, they're in the hallway. Imagine now when they go to 8th grade, they're in the same hallway as their 7th grade teachers. So those people that they spend a whole year getting to know and build that relationship with, they're going to still have that connection when they're in 8th grade, being able to reach out to those people. Vice versa, when they're 7th graders, they'll actually get to meet their 8th grade teachers before they even go into 8th grade. So we make these little communities of learning throughout the school. And you'll hear them referred to either as a 7A, as a number letter team, or all the teams have names as well that they refer to their team, just to build that team spirit. Again, another thing that's just super important at middle school, and something we're pretty proud and excited that your children will have the opportunity to have. Advisory is something that we've kind of tweaked to be new this year. If you had older children come through LMS, you may have remember a period of the day called Reach. With everything that we've been through the last 2 years, we're putting a heavy focus on this period of day at the end of the day and trying to actually schedule activities during that time to help with relationship building, to help kids get to know one another and get to know their teacher and have opportunities to talk and converse and build those relationships outside of the academic vein and get a chance to get to know each other. So we run clubs during that time. We actually have an advisory period during that time. And the kids are every single teacher just about in the school has a homeroom advisory, and it's only about 13, 14, 15 kids in advisory. So again, it's reducing those numbers in their homeroom, and the teachers are getting to know that smaller group, and they kind of build that bond, and they're all on the same team as a part of their team as a whole. But it's really been great, and again, a key thing to middle school and something that we're pretty proud of and happy about. Athletics, for those of you that are coming up, interscholastic athletics are new in 7th and 8th grade. We do kind of follow a similar season schedule as what the high schools do, but offer all the major sports, follow the PIAA rules and everything like that, and something that a lot of kids take advantage of. Outside of clubs, we have clubs that happen during advisory, school clubs that happen during the day, and then there's after-school clubs, things that kids can get involved in beyond the school day. Everything from the musical to an anime club to we have a thing called the Patriots Club. We have just all sorts of interests and activities, and we like to say, you have the kids remember that, if they can get enough kids interested in something and they can find a teacher that's willing to sponsor it, then we'll run that after school club because we really want them to become involved and have a reason to be at school. We don't have an activity bus like what Marsh Creek has, so you have to get your own transportation when you do that, but it is something that we try to get as much of the interests addressed that kids have. Last few things I'll just mention that you may not be familiar with. We run for conferences in the fall. We do what's called student-led conferences. The traditional conference, the parent sitting with the teachers, we can do that just about any day of the year. If you follow the old model, a traditional conference, you would have, if we did that, you would have those conferences in November, and then that'd be it. So you would just get that one little 15-minute, you'd be rushed through it, and then that's it. That's your conference for the year. Well, our mentality is our teachers have an opportunity in their schedule where multiple days a week they're able to meet with parents. So you don't have to wait till November to have your conference, and you can have another conference after then too. So instead, since we can do those conferences anytime we want, during conferences in November, we do student-led conferences. And the idea there is for kids to take ownership in their learning. The child actually comes with the parent, and the teachers are all there to support. And the child and the parent talk about how the year is going. Where are the areas where I'm strong? What do I need to work on? Here's some examples of my work. Here's what I'm enjoying. Here's what I'm not enjoying. And really, I always refer to that conversation that you want to have at the end of the day, where your child gets in the car and you say, hey, how'd your day go? Fine. Well, what'd you do today? Nothing. What's going on with your friends? I don't know. I've had 3 children, right? And so I know it can't be just me that has had that conversation with my kids. Well, when we bring them in for this student-led conference, they're going to talk to you. They're not just going to sit there and just say, oh, what, 1 or 2 word answers. They're going to give you really thorough, detailed answers about each one of their subject areas, and they're going to be speaking about it. So it's really a tremendous opportunity. It's something we encourage families to take advantage of, and something hopefully you can look forward to experiencing for those of you that are new to us. And then the last thing I'll mention is a capstone project, something we started a couple of years ago. This is an ungraded student interest program. It's run during the school day. It doesn't involve extra work. It's not something kids have to do at night. We try to run it during the day. And the idea is to just help kids discover things that they're interested in learning more about, something that, is curricular related, but they want to do and they want to dive deeper and find out more about and do a little presentation at the end of the year. And it's been a really cool program, something that has been teacher driven, created by our teaching staff, and our students have done a really great job with that the last few years. We've actually tinkered with it a little bit this year, and this year at the start of the year, we put a big focus on things that we can do to improve our school as a whole. So we've got some really great ideas out of that, and something we're going to continue to have, and we're excited to be able to share with you. So that's a lot of information, I know. I'm glad I'm recording this, so you can go back and watch it later if you like. But that's the basic nuts and bolts of how LMS operates and who we are as a staff and our philosophy. Our goal is to really try to create a student-centered experience for your child. I say to kids all the time, I want them to be sad to leave LMS, and a lot of them are. I really take a lot of pride in the fact that last day of 8th grade, there's a lot of tears because the kids really make the most. They develop these really, really close, tight bonds with their teachers, and miss them a great deal, and they miss our school a great deal. And we're just excited that you're going to be joining us, and excited you're going to have the opportunity to be a part of that. So I believe Ms. Lear is going to spend a couple of minutes just talking to you about our schedule, and then Mr. Kirby is going to talk to you about some of the Encore courses that your children have a chance to be a part of. So Janice, you want to take over?
All righty, thank you, and welcome everybody. As Dr. Ross said, I'm Janice Lear, proudly serving as one of the assistant principals at Lineville Middle School. This is my 3rd year here, and also very proud Downingtown parent. So I'm happy that you were able to join us this evening. Just want to share, please disregard the calendar year, as this is our current calendar or schedule, but we expect it to remain the same for next year. Students essentially have 7 periods during the day when they have classes. Of those 7 periods, 5 are in the academic or core area, and 2 are in the electives or encore area, as we refer to them. You can see that we have 3 lunch periods. There's a period 5 lunch, our first lunch, period 7, which is our second lunch period, and then period 9, our third lunch period. Those are also organized by team. So as Dr. Ross mentioned earlier, we are very purposeful in trying to make sure that everything we do in the school is built around the student experience and creating smaller communities. Okay. Dr. Ross also spoke about our advisory program, which we're continuing to develop each year. And the students in advisory, they start their day together in homeroom, and they end their day together with that same teacher who serves as an unofficial advisor at the end of the day. And we really feel that makes that whole day much better for our students. So that's essentially what the day looks like for your son or daughter. And students do stay in the same lunch period all year. I've gotten that question before. They do whatever lunch their team is in, That's their lunch period for the year. Okay, I briefly touched on this. Just as at Marsh Creek, core classes, things like English, math, science, history, those do meet every day, 6 days out of the cycle. We follow the same letter day schedule that your children experienced at Marsh Creek. And then our Encore classes as well meet 2 days out of the cycle. So typically classes would meet on A and D, B and E, or C and F day. And again, this is very similar to what their experience has been at Marsh Creek. So hopefully it will be a smooth transition for them. And I can also say that every year, I'm always amazed at how quickly our rising new 7th graders adapt to their new schedule and know exactly where they need to go. Basically, by the second week of school, they have it locked down. So please know that they're in good hands and they'll do well. As far as our core classes, I know we probably have some current 7th grade parents here, so I wanted to include both. Similar again to Marsh Creek, most students will be in our grade level math, 7th grade math. Some who have successfully completed the accelerated math at Marsh Creek will be placed in grade 8 math. In 7th grade, students have 2 periods of English and language arts. One is focused on literature, one is focused on writing. But based with our teaming, the teachers do collaborate very frequently to ensure that it's being taught with fidelity and taught in a best practice way. The history or the social studies curriculum is a 2-year continuum of U.S. history. It starts with pre-Revolutionary War, causes of the Revolutionary War in 7th grade, and it extends to Jeffersonian era and beginning into westward expansion. Science, there's 2 major units, ecology and physics. Okay, some students may be taking a reading course and that would take the place typically of history. And I'm not going to read through it all in 8th grade, but you can see in 8th grade, there's a similar curriculum. The history picks up where it left off in 7th grade and ends up in the roaring 20s. Science is divided into chemistry and biology are the 2 major units of study. And then in 8th grade, instead of taking 2 periods of English is provided in a 1 class period, and students will choose a world language, which will meet every day. So it takes the place of that other core class, and the classes we have available to students are French, Spanish, and German. And then I think Mr. Kirby is going to start talking about some of our intervention courses.
Thanks, Ms. Lair. Welcome, everybody. I'm Andy Kirby. Again, like Dr. Ross said, excited for this opportunity, kind of shift in my role with Lionville Middle School, but literally a dream come true to continue serving this community. I, too, am a parent of children in the district and look forward to helping you and your children however I can over the next couple years. So in our Encore blocks, and depending, again, which intervention course your son or daughter may require or benefit from, we have a variety of ways to address all of our students' needs here at LMS. We have a variety of reading courses available to students. We have a math support class available to students, which fits into the Encore schedule. Academics Expeditions is an intervention course designed to help students with study habits, some of those executive functioning skills that are being taught throughout all of our courses by advisors throughout our day, but this just goes in a little bit more depth for students that might require some extra intervention here. Next are starting to talk more about our special education interventions. So these are for students that have been identified with a need in this area and are receiving special education services. So we're covering skill areas in writing, in math, in emotional support, and in social support. All these classes are evidence-based, provided by either a reading specialist in the area of reading and learning support teachers in the other areas. We do run a few reading interventions where some of our learning support teachers are also teaching and facilitating that class as well. And again, depending on your child's individual needs, the frequency of these courses can vary. The one that is most consistent would be any of our reading interventions. they are offered 6 times or every day in your student's cycle. But they could go up, they could increase from 2 times to 4 or 6 times in writing, math, functional strategies, or social dynamics, again, depending on your child's needs. So for 7th grade and 8th grade, there are a couple of required Encore classes. Ones that really kind of are stand out would be the health and PE courses. So all students are required to take those classes. For 7th graders, the World Language Expeditions course is also a requirement. And again, this would happen 2 times per cycle and then segue into a 6 times per cycle block for 8th grade. And again, depending on what 6th grade classes may have been offered, there could be some variation in what you're taking or registering for in 7th and then moving on into in 8th grade. So we really encourage with these Encore classes for students to explore interests. Just like the middle school model and philosophy, this is a time of exploration, a time for students to kind of tap into those personal interests, find things that motivate them and inspire them in their kind of future path. So we really encourage students to change it up, get a flavor, and take all the Encore kind of areas such as art, tech ed, FCS, and music throughout the 2 years with us. Some students might really find an area of passion and an area of interest. And for those students, maybe they are kind of doubling in certain areas from 7th to 8th grade. And we certainly encourage that too, but we also want to let students know it's okay to try something and switch it up for 8th grade. Just again, for that sense of exploration and finding what their interests are. The curriculum for art, tech ed, FCS, and music does change. While the title or the course name might stay the same, the sequence definitely builds on itself. So they aren't just repeating what they've learned in 7th grade, again in 8th grade. And for many of our 6th graders currently, parents, you will see some familiar names here as well. But again, that curriculum changes and grows with your children as they go through our programs here. I should note for music, vocal ensemble is an audition-based Encore. So the students audition to be chosen for that Encore as they go into it. String, orchestra, and band, they do work with the instructors closely for this, and they are kind of leveled depending on your child's skill set. So if you have a child that's interested in getting into instruments and string and band, we will make sure that they're appropriately placed with their peers and get the appropriate instruction in that and development as they go from 7th to 8th as well. So a great place to read up and learn more about the Encores as well as all of our courses here at LMS is going to be on our district website. So we have an arrow here highlighting it where you can find it at LMS's website, the 2022-2023 academic program of study. You're going to get a little bit more detailed overview of the core classes as well as the Encore classes. So this is a great place to kind of read up on that. For 6th grade students, if there's questions and you're having conversations at home and you want to learn a little bit more, head to the website. And if you have further questions, of course, reach out to us. And the school counseling department, I'm sure at Marsh Creek, can give you some insight into that as well. But this is going to be a great place to kind of come and get some additional information as you are starting to choose courses. So in campus, Infinite Campus, this is also going to be a place for registering for our 7th to 8th grade students, parents to check in, see the courses being registered for parents of the 6th graders coming in. Again, another place to check and confirm courses are being registered for and have an idea of what your student schedule will look like for next year. So when you're in your message center, you're going to go down to the bottom left of your screen to the More tab and select that. That's going to bring you to this screen, and here you can select the Course Registration tab, and that's going to open up and show you where you can start looking into the courses to be selected for. Again, it'll say, I'm sure, confident it'll say 22, 23 for that when you start looking into it currently. So that wraps up our overview of course selection. I think at this time we really want to open it up for some question and answer.
Can I just say one thing real quick, Andy, before we do that? Just as watching this and thinking about questions we've gotten in the past, you know, a lot of the classes that you see, your child, what a lot of folks ask is, how do I know my child's going to be put in? My kid's currently getting these services, whether it's reading class, whether some of the interventions that Andy talked about, or even gifted services, you know, some of the things that have been specially designed for them. There's a big transition plan that happens for kids coming from 6th to 7th grade, where our teachers meet with the current 6th grade teachers. They hand everything over to them. They go through the caseload. They address all of these different things that you've been talking about with them over the course of the year. So my point being, if you're getting these types of services, whatever they may be, any kind of specially designed instruction, it's going to continue unless you put a stop to it, you and the team put a stop to it. But I know a lot of times folks wonder, oh, they're worried, oh, it's going to slip through the cracks. My kid's getting these things at Marsh Creek. How do I know they're going to get it when they get to LMS? We do a lot of things in that transition to make sure that happens. Go through a lot of double checking, a lot of spreadsheets, a lot of meetings to do the absolute best job we can to make sure those things are going to be continued on as they move up to LMS. That said, when the schedules get published and you look at your child's schedule, if something doesn't look right, and this goes to everyone, if something does not look right, please contact us right away. Please don't hesitate. Please reach out to us as soon as you see those schedules when they get published in August. If something does not, even just feels a little bit weird to you, something you're really not sure about, something doesn't make sense, because I can't tell you how many times folks wait until after the year starts, and then sometimes that makes it really complicated to get those things. So just a quick plug for those two things I wanted to mention, because I think that's a pretty typical question that we get when we do these presentations.
All right, thank you, Dr. Ross. And I'm going to go ahead and start by addressing just a couple of the questions that are in the chat. The first question is how many minimum units student needs out of 336, and it's 168. It's half of that, because the way Infinite Campus works is it plans out the academic program for the 2 years the student is at LMS. So when your student is completing his or her course registration on their iPads or on your home computer, once they get to 50% complete, their schedule is full, okay? There's another question about math. Yeah, so students were placed in the next natural progression based on our course of study and our scope and sequence. So if a student was currently in accelerated math in 6th grade, they will be placed in grade 8 math as a 7th grader. Just as we have the last 2 years, we will offer an opportunity near the end of the year in the spring for students to take an end of year assessment for the course they are scheduled to take in the next year. The way this has worked in the last couple of years is if a student scores an 80% or higher, that demonstrates mastery, and at that time, a student would be eligible to essentially skip a math class and go to the next level class. So current 6th grade parents on this Zoom call, you'll get information from Mr. Mulvey at Marsh Creek later in the spring about when that will happen and logistics for that. And then our current 7th grade parents will get information from Dr. Ross later this year regarding that opportunity. So you can continue putting questions in the chat, or certainly just you can unmute yourself. I believe I have that. You have the ability to do that, and feel free to ask us. And I'll just continue and answer one more question in the chat. It asks if the Tech Ed course is mandatory for 8th graders if they did not take the course in 7th grade. That's a great question. As I think Mr. Kirby highlighted, it's really important to us that students have an opportunity to explore courses in all 4 areas. Having said that, we also recognize that some students may be enrolled in some support classes, which really limits the amount of time they have to choose an encore. So in those situations, we certainly want to honor that and allow students, if they have that limited choice, to choose a class that they really are highly interested in or passionate about. So certainly there are exceptions to that, because like I said, we want to respect that and honor that in our students. But we also think one of the best things about Lineville is the opportunity for students to really explore different areas. Do you want me to just continue answering the questions, Dr. Ross?
Yeah, I think that's best, because actually, I don't think Andy and I can see the questions since you're the host.
Oh, okay.
So I think it's on you. I would just say, if anybody wants to ask a question of us verbally out loud, like I said earlier, if you turn your camera on first, that'll kind of give us a clue that you want to ask one. I see Melissa there. Can you unmute yourself to ask your question?
Yeah. Some people had asked on the Marsh Creek, like 6th grade Facebook page, if say we sign up for art and it's full, do they just get put in something else? Like, do they fill up and then they would just lose that option and go to something else?
That's a great question. Luckily, I'm a very good scheduler. I'm just kidding. We really, it's very rare that we are not able to meet our students' needs. It's kind of one of the first things I learned from Dr. Ross when I got here. It's all about creating the best student experience possible. So we work very hard to make sure that happens. Having said that, we also encourage all students to choose one alternate. So when they choose, so if, for example, there was an incredible run on iArt. Well, iArt does have a limited class size because of the laptops that the students use in that digital design course. So we would certainly encourage your son or daughter to choose another Encore, identify that with the letter A as alternate. So in the event we can't meet their request, at least something they're interested in would fill its spot. Okay. The difference between level 1 and level 2 English. Level 2 is the grade level English. And it's an incredibly rigorous curriculum and taught by the same teachers who teach the level 1. To kind of get a sense of the scope of it, about 80% of our students are in the grade level ELA course, the level 2 course. Those who have really demonstrated a keen interest in writing or reading and have a capacity for that, their 6th grade teachers may have recommended that they go into the level 1. Perhaps that would include maybe a higher level reading choices, novels, some more sophisticated writing expectations. So that would be geared for students who really have a strong interest and capacity in English. If my student, let's see, if my child has not chosen any instrument so far, does she still have an option to choose band? Yes, that was an important detail that I will acknowledge I left off the PowerPoint. The course selection windows continues until Friday, or until Sunday. I'm not exactly sure of the time. So if your child really wants to take band, I would certainly encourage them to reach out to either a counselor at Marsh Creek and get that band added. And then that counselor will also help us understand if there's any experience in band, so we can better place your son or daughter. As far as how teams will be decided, for the most part, we're blessed with 4 amazing teams of teachers, and so it's wonderful that no matter where you end up, your child will have a phenomenal experience. So teams are placed randomly. We have 4 teams, and it's random assignment. We balance the teams. The software we use balances the teams to some degree by gender. Balances the teams by if there are a lot of interventions, special ed gifted, so that's balanced so that the student profile is pretty similar on all 4 teams. If there are certainly any extenuating circumstances, for example, I had a request from a parent who has twins and would like the twins to be on the same team. You can certainly reach out to us in those cases, because we want to try to support you as best we can.
Janice, let me say something real quick about that if I can.
Yeah.
I'll get a lot of these as well. First of all, you should know the teams don't always stay the same from year to year. Things happen. For instance, I already know of a current 7th grade teacher who's not going to be returning to LMS next year. at least planned right now not to. So that means there's going to be some movement. There's going to be some shifting. Or we're going to put a new person there. We're going to move somebody there and hire a new person somewhere else. So what I encourage folks to do is, you know, if you have a team that, like, sometimes people say, oh, my older kids had this team and I'd like my younger child to have that team. You might want to be specific. Again, we can't guarantee that we're going to be able to honor it, but you might want to be specific. What we can honor is, I've been around long enough to know sometimes your kid really, your family really doesn't do well with a particular teacher. Let's phrase it that way. You know, maybe you just had a negative experience, whatever. Chalk it up to whatever you want. Like, people don't always get along well, right? That we can try to make sure. If you had an older child that had a particular teacher and you're like, oh my God, I'm dreading going back to LMS because I know my younger child's going to get this teacher, and that teacher and I just didn't get along. We had a lot of issues, and my older child has already told my younger child, you better not get stuck. If that's a situation, you know, let me know, because that's a lot easier to accommodate, to, you know, try to avoid a particular teacher rather than try to make sure you get a particular teacher. That's a little bit more challenging.
Thank you. Yes, someone asked about the completion bar. If it does say 50% complete, then you are done. And if you want to choose strings in 8th grade, there is violin as part of that, so you can certainly choose that option for 8th grade. I see some questions about, we are still at 33% in Infinite Campus after selecting a language and 3 encores. So I'll have to individually look. I just tried to look up the last name there and I didn't see that student. But you can certainly check with, if your child is currently a 6th grader, encourage your child to check in with his or her counselor at Marsh Creek either tomorrow or Friday. If your child is a 7th grader, please come to our counseling suite, or certainly check in with me. English 2 is our grade level class, where about 80% of our students are enrolled in English 2, which is grade level.
Let me jump in again real quick if I can, Janice, because we're at about 40 minutes. So I'm going to wrap up the recording just for the sake of anybody who might be viewing this on the recording later. This is the end of the recording. I would encourage you, if you have any questions, to, you know, reach out to us via email or phone call. Those of you that are still on the line here and still have more questions, we're going to continue to take your questions. But I just wanted to, I didn't want the recording to just magically stop and people to be worried they missed out on something. So I'm going to stop the recording now, but we can continue with any questions.